Okay, welcome to our fourth class of our drawing class, winter drawing class. And you know, a couple weeks ago, I talked about the fact that man started drawing about 20,000 or 50,000 years ago. I've heard different numbers. By drawing beautiful pictures of animals, and they did it very accurately on cave walls. Beautiful, beautiful pictures. And if you ever get a chance to go to Lazy Say and see those, it's well worth the trip.
Where is it?
It's in France, Lazy Say. It's in the Dordogne area of France, kind of the western, southwestern area of France. It's beautiful, beautiful area. Looks like Yosemite down there. It's beautiful. But there are all these caves, and there's beautiful cave paintings in there. And there are, Lazy Say is the big one, but there's another one, Peshmeral, that I went to a few years ago. I don't know if it's open anymore, but at that time it was completely open. You could get into the actual real cave and see the real drawings. Lazy Say you can't. They have a representation of it that you go into that is an exact copy of it, but the reason they don't let people into the actual caves is that our breaths wreck the things that are on the walls. It's going to destroy them. So the only people that ever get into the real caves are like maybe the President of the United States, you know, somebody like that. They would take like 2 or 3 really, you know, important people would be able to get in there, but most people can't. But they have done a complete representation of it that you see there. But Peshmeral, a few years ago, we could actually go in and see the actual cave paintings. And what was really interesting to me was these are caves that were done 20,000 years ago, or opened, you know, at that time. And when I looked down in one place, they said there was a footprint of a 12-year-old boy from 20,000 years ago.
Wow.
That was amazing. But anyway, it's beautiful. But even though man started drawing and painting beautifully 20,000 years ago, he did not do perspective. You know, nobody did perspective for years and years and years. And so if they were drawing animals, yeah, they could do a really good depiction of an animal, but if they were trying to draw a building at any time, it was very primitive. It wasn't exactly as our eyes see it. And it wasn't until, I think, 1402, Brunelleschi, we know the person that did it, he discovered perspective. And what he did was really interesting because the artists at that time did exactly what we're doing with this plane. They put a piece of glass up in front of them and gridded it off, more grids than we have. We just have 4, you know, rectangles in ours, but they did a little more grids. Put it up in front of them and drew what they saw. And so it's exactly the same method that we're using today. Now, architects today, and I asked you to bring some pictures from magazines, and you can see architects, you know, make these buildings, and they do it from drawings. However, architects do not do the drawings anymore. They use CAD software to do that, and so they do it. But they follow all the rules of perspective. Now, we're not going to be following the exact rules of perspective, but I want to go over them so you know what they are, because it's good to know what they are. And perspective is really the way we, with our 2 eyes, view the world. And I think a lot of people here in Nevada have a good sense of what one-point perspective is, because if you ever drive on Highway 50 out in the middle of the desert, you're going to see a horizon line. And you're going to see the road. Disappear into the distance in that horizon line. Right? That's a pretty familiar point of view for us. That's a one-point perspective. It's called one point. And I used to teach that in high school. to lots and lots and lots of students. And they all got it. They got it right away. And then what they would do from there is, this is called, that's the horizon line, it's what you see at the very edge of the earth. And this is the vanishing point, it's called. It's where everything vanishes into. And there are only 3 kinds of lines you can have on this surface. You can have a horizontal line, you can have a rectangular line, and you can have a line that goes back to the vanishing point. So everything else goes back to the vanishing point. Okay, so if I were drawing a building, I would have a vertical line, horizontal line, another vertical line, and the edge of the building would be going back, to the vanishing point. Something like this. Okay, and you could have a lot of buildings going along the street, going back there. If I were going to draw a tree, this tree, the trees that go along the road will get larger and larger as you get closer to you and go back to the vanishing point also. So that's a one-point perspective, very simple. And there's a couple problems with perspective lines, is that what you end up with is a very stilted drawing. You got all the vertical lines, horizontal lines, and lines going back to the vanishing point, and it doesn't look very realistic. I mean, it does look realistic, and it looks like it goes back in space, but it doesn't look interesting, I think is the way I would put it. So that's one kind of perspective. There's also something called a two-point perspective, and that's where you have the horizon line and points on either end. And you have your points going back to those vanishing points. And you have a horizontal line in the middle, and there you are looking at the edge of a building. So the windows will go back to the vanishing point, your doors will go back to the vanishing point, another window over here, the vanishing point. And that's a two-point perspective. There's another problem with this two-point perspective, is that a lot of times your points end up way off your paper. You know, they're way out on the side. And so it really isn't very useful to use that particular type of perspective. But you can see that this is the way our eyes see the world, okay? There is a three-point perspective, and that would be something like if you were doing a drawing of a spaceship going out in space, like Star Wars. That was done in three-point perspective, because you don't have a horizon line, you have space all around you. So that isn't used nearly as often. But anyway, so that's perspective. But what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sighting the perspective. We'll use the perspective lines, but we're not going to do vanishing points and all that. We're going to start by sighting and figuring out what the relationship is between each different space that we do. And I want you to start off by doing 3 formats inside your viewfinder, and make the grid line on your format. Just do 3 of them, because we're going to do a series of 3 pictures. Okay, we're going to draw a door, and this door doesn't have any angles on it. You know, door is just straight lines, vertical and horizontal, but we're going to start there. And what I want you to do with this door is sit find a place where you can look at a door, and there are 2 doors in this room, so the class can kind of be split up between the 2 of you. But just sit about as far as I am from that door, from it. You guys are going to have to move away, so I have to look at the door. And I want you to hold your picture plane. Use your dry erase markers. Remember, dry erase, not permanent markers. And take your picture plane and lock your elbows. And put it so you can see the whole door in your picture frame. So make sure your elbows are locked and it's at the full length of your arm. And then close one eye. And then look at the top of the door where it hits on your picture frame. And it's not going to be a very straight line because you can't do a real straight line, but just make sure that you have the ends at the length they are on your that you see it through the picture frame. Okay. Mine's not really working too well. Okay. Anyway, now that is going to be your basic unit. And we talked about basic units before. And I want you to transfer that basic unit. Okay, can you put the picture down to my... I'm going to have to do it with this one because that marker is not working real well. Okay, so my basic unit is the top of the door. The top of the door. And I want you to transfer that to one of your formats and just go exactly as it is on where you saw it when you looked through the picture plane. Okay, now that's your basic unit. And if you take your pencil and mark that, you're going to look again at through your picture frame. Take your pencil and mark it and see what the relationship is between the sides of the door and this basic unit at the top. And mine's basically 1 to 2. You know, when I'm looking at this, I get 1 is my basic unit, 2 is the sides of the door. So that means when I go down to my picture, I measure 1, 2, and that's the end of the door right there. And you can use a ruler. I'm just going to use the side of my picture frame because it's hard to make straight lines, but make that exactly the length that you saw in your picture frame. And you've got the door. You can add details to this picture. There's a frame around it. That's not hard. There's a little window in that, and if I look at the window and if I take my basic unit, the window is about almost as long as that basic unit, a little bit shorter, but so I can draw that in. And the width of that little window is about 1/4 of this. So I can measure that out. And there I have, and then there's a little rim inside of it. And then around the door, there's an end to the door. So we're just closing that off. And then there's the floor. And there's a little rim at the bottom, and that's about the same width as this window. So I can kind of measure that out and put that in. You can go to as much detail on this as you want. But when you get done, you should have a door that is in proportion to what you're looking at on the wall, okay? So that's the only thing you do on this first one. Just find a door and use a basic unit to make a relationship between the width of the door and the height of the door. Okay, what I've seen is that everybody in this room did a perfectly proportional door. We were only working with verticals and horizontals, but because you had that unit and you compared the vertical unit with how many horizontal units, it comes out perfectly proportional. This might not have happened if you didn't make that comparison. Now what we're going to do is put into the mix angles, okay? And so you're going to look at a corner and you're going to use your picture plane again, full out. You don't have to worry about getting the floor in this. You can just, but I do want you to get the ceiling into it. So I want you to make a vertical line. That's the corner, as straight as you can. Then take your pencil and figure out what angle that ceiling hits that line at. And I'm looking at about, and you can look at it, it's about a 2/3 of a 180-degree angle. So it just slightly goes up. So I'm going to put that at that level. Not a very straight line, but okay. And then the other side is a little different. It's a little bit, it's more like, it angles up a little bit more. So I'm going to angle that one up like that. And that is, now you've got a perspective of an angle hitting the window, the wall. And so then transfer that onto your paper exactly as it is. And what you've got on your paper is a corner. And you can add details into that if you want. I noticed there are lines that go across the ceiling, and those lines are parallel to the angle that the ceiling hits the wall. So you want to keep those parallel. I can see that there's a window, and that window is parallel to that angle that I just did for the ceiling. So you can add details into this, but remember that every single line in here is either vertical, I don't really have any horizontal lines in this, or they follow the angle of the line that goes into, that the ceiling goes into the corner. And then you're going to have a perspective of that corner. Okay? So pick your corner, can be that one, that one, that one. This would be an interesting one because actually there's two angles there. If you want to have something a little more challenging, that would be a good one. There's another one over there. There's another one that has a little jog in it also. That would make it more interesting. Okay. Okay, this time we're going to do both the ceiling and the floor. And so you're going to find a corner, and you're going to hold your plane straight out, arm's length, and you're going to draw the corner, which is a straight line. Then you're going to look up at the ceiling and see what the angle is where that ceiling hits that. And right where I'm standing, it's maybe not a little bit more than a quarter of the way up. So I'm going to do it like that. And then on the other side, it kind of is about the same, actually. Okay, and then when I look down at the floor, and I'm shortening it, but I'm going down to the floor, and I can see that the floor is about 2/3 of the way down, like that. And the other side of the floor actually has more of an angle from where I am. So it goes like this. So take this and put it onto your picture plane, and you can add any details that you want into this, but make sure that you have the angles correctly as you viewed them. And you can see that the ceiling angles go up and the floor angles head down. And then you can put the details in as you see it. If there's a phone in there, there's a door there. But remember, whenever you put the angles in, the top of the door angle has to echo the angle that you had for the ceiling.
So we can do this and put the cabinet in also.
Yeah, you can do that. Okay? So this is the third in the set of drawings. Okay, now we've done 3 pictures. We've done just a doorway, we've done a ceiling and a wall, and we've done the ceiling and floor and a wall. And we're going to put these all together now for your big painting. This is a real perspective painting. And we're out here in the hallway because this is a perfect one-point perspective right here. I mean, if you go down this hallway, it goes to a vanishing point right at the end. But we're not going to do a vanishing point and everything. There are 3 hallways that I counted here. There's one that goes this way, one that goes behind me, and one that goes off to the left as you look down there. So we could split this up into maybe 3 or 4 people in each place. And it doesn't matter if you're right in the center or if you're off to the side, that doesn't matter. You're just going to draw what you see from wherever you are. And most of these start out with a doorway at the end, which I'm going to start out with this. And what you want to do is find your basic unit again, which I'm going to use the top of the doorway as my basic unit, and put your picture plane straight out. Try to get the ceiling and the floor in the painting. Close one eye and do your basic unit on here, straight as you can, which isn't very straight for me. And then find where that is on your picture and put that right. It's right about in the middle and about this distance. Okay? Then do the same thing we did before. Measure your basic unit at the top. Measure the size of the door, which again is the same. It's 1 to 2, basically. So it goes down to here. And draw the door just like you did before. Then go up and look at the ceiling, and you can see this ceiling is, it's about half the distance of this. It's about up to here, and where I'm looking at it, it's straight. It goes straight across. Remember, there are only 3 ways things are going to go: vertical, horizontal, or at an angle. And then this goes to the edge of the door, and then the angle goes up, and I can measure that. Goes up here, and then there's another wall right here. And so just take it like as if you're doing a puzzle. You're just picking each piece and putting the next piece next to it and measuring it to see how it is in proportion to that next piece. So I had an angle going up here, then I have a straight way here, and then I have another wall here. And I have to find out how far that wall is up, I again measure my basic angle, and it's about 2/3 of the way across here. So that's about right. Okay, and just take it, puzzle it out. Just take each little section and measure it to the section you did before and keep going. And at the floor, you want to stop the door where it stops, and then take the angle again that goes out, and you'll know that the angle at the floor goes down, the angle at the ceiling goes up, and then there's another angle. No, that's the angle, and then it goes straight across. Okay.
Right.
So anyway, and then when it's blocked off by this wall, you do another horizontal line. Remember, only horizontals, verticals, and angles. And angles up at the top, angles down at the bottom. Okay, and see how that goes? You just build it, build. So just split yourselves up into 4 or 5 groups, and you can take 2 chairs out with you if you need someplace to put your drawing pad, or you can put your drawing pad on your lap, either way. But take a chair.